Okay, friends, we're all navigating back. For those of us who were here in the great Zoom bomb of 20, what was it, 2020? Was it the end of the pandemic? Oh, then the pandemic, the end of quarantine. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, I guess we can get started as people. I know it's a little bit of a process to get, we won't be getting notifications or anything anymore, so we have to be a little more manual with this. Um, I am wearing, oh, my pajamas because I haven't changed clothes today with my house robe. So this is what you're getting today. And I fear you may be getting this for the rest of the year because my New Year's resolution is that you've been here long enough to like understand that like I'm not here to put on a performance for you all. So I just can't be bothered to put on a new outfit to come sit online with you all. Not that I don't love you, because I do, I really do. Love draws me into the practice with you, but not enough to take out my house robe that I feel very comfortable in. But as some of you know, I have a collection of robes and kimonos, so that may be something I display every week as well. All right, so I think people are navigating well enough. Again, we have the documents. Now, I think Eric mentioned somewhere where we can put questions, or maybe we can just have questions saved until the end.
Yeah, so free form, depending on what feels good, but in order to sort of mimic the function of the question situation in Crowdcast, we just created a handy dandy second Google Doc. And in the prayer doc, you can find a link to the ask Lama Rod a question or something like that, and vice versa, if you want to get to the prayer doc. So tried to nest things. Okay. And yeah, however you'd like to roll with that, Lama Rod.
Okay. Well, we'll just see how it works out today. And then we'll come back and figure it out. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming out again to our first Medicine Buddha of the year. Of the Gregorian calendar, New Year. And I hope everyone made it through the holidays okay, and through all the super freezing weather that many of us endured. I had a busted pipe. I don't know about anyone else, but my little old house couldn't stand it, all the cold Arctic weather. So we got that fixed. It was a little Christmas gift of a busted pipe and the blessing of Mother Ocean blessing my home with free flowing water in the kitchen. It was wonderful. Awesome. Again, go ahead and start doing our prayer requests or just putting those out on the doc. So I have a new instrument. I don't know what it's called, but I got it from a medicine man on solstice. So it feels very, I was in solstice ceremonies most of the day on solstice. I guess this was last week. And I took a break and ran into a medicine man. He gave me a little ritual. Well, I had to pay for it. I didn't really give it. But you'll be surprised at how often people just give me ritual objects on the streets. Actually, I have stories about that. But I offered a donation for this. So we're going to incorporate this into the mantra practice as well. It's very actually quite powerful as well. I've practiced with it a little bit. But just a little bit of an announcement. Let me just check the calendar here. I'm gonna make sure I give you the right date. Um, right. So on the 16th, which is the practice, the Monday after next, I will be starting in this session introducing the mantra practice that I want us to start doing this year. And the mantra practice is to deepen our, I guess, our frequency, to tune our frequency a little more intensely to that of Medicine Buddha. So many people, you all have been wondering how to take the practice deeper, and this is the primary way to take the practice deeper, is to do mantra practice. So a little different than what we do together, which is a little more active. But a mantra practice really is about accumulating mantras, and in that accumulation, the mantra and the frequency of the mantra, which is an expression of Medicine Buddha's consciousness, actually that mantra begins to tune us into the consciousness of Medicine Buddha. So we have a much deeper connection to these healing capacities of Medicine Buddha. And I haven't decided on the number of recitations, but we may be looking up into the millions of mantra recitations, accumulating the mantras of Medicine Buddha. That means that you're going to have to, I mean, there's no timeline, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, a lot of numbers are just really fucking random, so it's like, let's do 1 million of these, let's do 100,000 of these. These are just random numbers. The point of these numbers is to help us just to do practice and forget about getting anywhere with it. So mantra accumulation is a really hard phrase, but I'm still going to use it. We're not going to get anywhere. It's not a race that we're trying to run, unless you think the race is getting free and liberated, which indeed, it's quite a journey. But mantra recitation is just something that should be deeply ingrained in our practice. We should be doing mantras even in our dreams. That's how intense the practice should get. Like, you should be accumulating doing mantras in dreams. You should be catching yourself saying a mantra without even knowing it. That's how in tune we want to get, because that's like a constant prayer practice. We're constantly praying, we're constantly in relationship with the deity through their mantras. So again, on the 16th, I'll introduce that practice, and you'll be getting really basic visualizations to work with in the mantra accumulation. Having a mala would be really helpful. A mala, one, can be used to count mantras, but secondly is really about having another anchor for our practice, so you have a sensation that you're working with, physical sensation that you're working with, and that can help to anchor the accumulation process. Okay, so we'll be doing that in 2 weeks. This is going to be in 2 weeks. Yeah, and so for today, for our practice, we're gonna do an energy gathering practice. So energy gathering practice, we're always gathering energy and the practices that I offer, but we're going to actually explicitly do that in our practice. So when I talk about gathering energy, I'm talking about pulling in energy, attracting energy back to us that we've been spilling all over the place. So it's like going back and sweeping up all the cookies we dropped on the kitchen floor, you know, because they're still edible. In this analogy, they're still edible. So we're going to sweep up those cookies, but not just in this moment where we're going to go. I'm actually wanting to do this for um, over the next couple of weeks. I feel like this is necessary, but we're going to start gathering energy from the past as well that we've left in the past. We're going to start gathering energy from past lives where we've left energy. We never want to gather energy from the future unless it is a crisis or an emergency, because we need that energy in the future. We have actually done the practice of sending energy into the future. So we've done that a couple of times already. So we're not gonna gather anything from the future, because we need that energy, but we will be sending energy into the future. Of course, that energy meets us when we get into the future. Now, I'm not going to get into explaining how metaphysically this works because I really don't have the time for all of that right now. But maybe we'll break it up into small segments over the next couple of weeks. I mean, this is like, there are different dimensions we can gather energy from. There are different beings we can gather energy from. We do that already with the 7 homecomings practice, so we're already familiar with that. But I want us to tighten up the containers here. We need the energy to make it through the year. And the mantra recitation is about tightening the container to hold the consciousness and the healing qualities of Medicine Buddha. It begins to tune our minds and creates a real energetic container. So we're able to gather our energy and protect it, and then move through the spaces that we have to move through without just leaking. You know, we're like these leaky balloons wandering everywhere, you know. And of course, all of this is really based on awareness. Like, the deepening of awareness increases the capacity for us to know how we're exchanging energies with our environments. So again, we give away energy too much. And one of the ways we give away energy is just by reacting to everything. You know, getting involved in like silliness that we actually don't need to get involved in, you know. That kind, like, for instance, I see this like all the time on social media, people arguing back and forth on social media. You won't see me arguing with people on social media, you know, but in my private practice, I will be cussing people out, you know, so that's how I manage that. Cussing, not cursing. I don't curse people unless they deserve it. But like you know, this whole thing where it's like everything is for me to deal with and get involved with, you have to disrupt that, right? You have to disrupt this kind of way that we're drawn into drama, you know. Like, you have to let it go. This is a new year. This is going to be a tough year that we're moving into, so you have to get real serious about where you're investing your energy into. And you have to think really critically about the things that you need to start divesting from, right? Because they no longer serve you, right? And there are people who are, one, intentionally kind of showing up as these psychic vampires, like drawing energy from you. And there are people who really get off on that, you know, and they know how to push your buttons. They know what to say. They love the reaction. They love taking that energy. So you have to divest from that, right? You have to start divesting, you know, from situations that we keep going back into, thinking that we're going to fix it. If you haven't fixed it already, then you probably won't fix it. So maybe you start divesting from that. You know, these long-term projects to change your lovers, right? You know, like they're really good people if you can't go into a relationship thinking you're going to change someone, right? That's a project that is not yours to do, right? Um, like what else? Like you all, some of you are getting this, you get this, right? I have to start drawing back, right? Drawing my energy out of relationships. And so one of the things that happens too is like if you can just imagine yourself and the energy field around you, right? And your energy field has these streams of energy. These are like thoughts, right? And these thought energy patterns and streams are just flowing all over the place, involved in all kinds of nonsense, you know. Some of it is nonsense, right? Some of the streams are actually supporting things that we need to be a part of, like, but imagine that, like you have all these streams of energies emerging from you, involved in all the stuff in the world. And what we want to start doing is actually pulling back, drawing back in some of these streams and redirecting it back into our experience so they can begin to energize us instead of feeling depleted. Um, and we'll, of course, like this is a multi-stage practice, and this is only just an introduction today. But we're gonna go deeper into it. But we'll start with a very basic foundational practice. Um, Now, let's start now. So I want to start with lighting our practice candle. All right. I know it's hard to see with the lights. So again, when we're doing candle work like this really basic candle work, when we light the candle of course represents clarity, it represents wisdom. Clarity and wisdom are similar. It represents compassion, love, all that stuff, but it represents our capacity to get really clear right now. Like there's a lot of confusion, a lot of delusion. So the clarity, right, begins to emerge, symbolized through this flame. And we just imagine that this flame is just the natural energy of our awareness, the natural, clear, bright, dynamic, warm, spacious energy of our awareness, which is the basic energy of our consciousness. So starting out with just resting within the energy of your awareness, this energy of knowing, right? An energy that is in this moment, that actually transcends, this illusion of time. Awareness just is. And that all of the phenomenal world, everything around us, everything begins to pulsate or glow or radiate with the light of our awareness. Because our awareness, of course, as an expression of our consciousness, which is an expression of our nature, the nature of our mind, everything arises. All phenomena arises out of the nature of our minds, right? And so therefore, everything can radiate with this kind of primordial energy of awareness itself. So the world, or the phenomenal world, begins to change, right? It's no longer this kind of antagonistic, kind of sharp, whatever, but there's a softening that begins to happen when we begin to experience our awareness and consciousness as being the essence of everything that arises. This sense of claustrophobia, of contraction, of constriction, begins to release, relax, open, blossom. And we begin to connect to this experience of space. And of course, space is the expression of the mother, right? So to open, to relax, to expand is to meet the mother in this moment. So just noticing that. So spending a few moments working with that, this beginning practice. So again, this light, this flame represents the energy of our awareness and our consciousness, the light, the illumination. We begin to feel this illumination, experience this illumination radiating within all phenomenal, within all phenomena, be it a chair, a room, anything, your computer is radiating with the energy of your consciousness, your awareness. So the world, the phenomenal world, becomes illusionary and malleable. And of course, this is the potential, right? This is the potential that begins to disrupt our intense fixation on materialism or permanence. Nothing is permanent, nothing is ultra material. Everything, again, is an illusion. And this is how one of the ways we begin to experience that illusion, by allowing our minds, our consciousness to radiate, awaken within everything around us. So when you're engaged in practice like this, your energy is no longer just being leaked, right? Because there's nowhere for it to go, because everything is an expression of your mind. You know, there's no longer this belief that my energy is going anywhere, right? Slowly, the idea that I am actually begins to be disrupted as the sense of self and ego also becomes imbued and radiating with consciousness as well, a knowingness. Of course, what makes this practice so difficult is that we're constantly, consciously and unconsciously, fixated on this sense of self, right? So when we turn our attention, this awareness to the sense of self, there could be this reactivity of tightening even more, like we may feel it as anxiety, some type of fear, maybe terror, depending on how strong it is, because it's this idea that we're so self-identified with this illusion of self. To start relaxing around it feels, well, it feels like dying. Like it feels like you're losing control. And that fear is what keeps us so fixated on itself, because we feel like we can't survive without it. And we're not trying to erase the ego, because in the practice, we're not trying to erase anything. Right? So erasing anything or getting rid of anything is not aligned with the practice of Buddha Dharma. So that becomes a whole nother thing altogether. But in this path, we are trying to hold everything within awareness, even the illusion of self. So we can let go of the sense of self, but still recognize the illusion of self at the same time. Again, it's like when we're having a nightmare, and then in the nightmare, we wake up, or we have this thought, oh, this is just a nightmare, and the nightmare loses its intensity, because you're like, oh, it's like watching a movie, right? So it's the same thing with the ego, the sense of self. You recognize the illusion, and you go, oh, it's just an illusion. This doesn't actually exist, but I still have to remain in relationship with it, because the ego is how I create community with all other living beings in this world system. So you can still be in proximity to the illusion of ego without having to erase the illusion of ego. course, that's also risky as well, to stay in proximity to the ego, as we still will do egoistic things despite the fact that we may be enlightened. So no path of liberation is perfect in this case. So we have to get rid of this idea that enlightenment is this perfect scenario, because that doesn't exist in the carceral state of samsara. There will always be messiness, even at the threshold of awakening, right? And even beyond, if you stay in this world system, in this material world. And that's what we have to hold, the contradiction of awakening in the body in this world means that there will always be things that will never make sense. There will always be harm on some level happening. No one, even the Buddha, could be in the world without creating harm to some being. Even for the Buddha, even if there was insects. That's what interdependence means. No matter what I do is going to have an impact on someone else, even if what I do is really great and compassionate. There's a ripple effect, this energetic ripple effect that begins to ripple into other experiences, other people's lives, and so forth. It's like playing telephone. It may start with a great message. By the end of that message passing down the line, it may have turned into something else. Right? That's the nature of the carceral stage. Shifts, transformation, impermanence. Right? Things will always change, no matter how much we control them or attempt to control them. And just a little bit longer. So if you're just joining, we're just kind of resting our minds. We're using light as a way to connect to the energy of our minds, that natural arising awareness of the mind, of consciousness, beginning to feel all phenomena radiating with this energy of our awareness. Learning to rest in that, to hold all of this arising without reacting to it. Holding the illusion of ego and self, this idea that I am. Holding that within the space of awareness. And just expanding into space, spaciousness, and space itself, where we meet really the love, the care of the mother, who is an expression of space. And so when you're ready, we're gonna move deeper into the practice now. So I invite you to shift your attention just down to your seat, just noticing the weight of the body, making contact with the seat. We can shift our attention even lower, touching into the earth. So noticing the energy of the earth, which is the earth's consciousness, like rising to meet us. And so our awareness touches into the awareness of the earth. And there is, even though we may not feel it, a kind of energetic stabilizing beginning to happen in our experience. There's a steadiness that begins to arise. So noticing this rising of earth, energy, consciousness, stabilizing a little more. I want to just shift a little bit of attention to the breath. Now, if you're not working with the breath, that's okay. Just continue to kind of rest with the earth stabilizing. But if you're working with the breath, just beginning to notice the in breath and the out breath. And in between the in breath and the out breath, really notice the space that arises between the in breath and the out breath. So as you inhale, there's a split second where the body shifts from inhaling to exhaling. In that shift, there's a space that opens. I just want you to notice, I don't want you to do anything with extending it or holding breath, just noticing, inhaling, exhaling that split second, maybe it's longer for some of you, but just noticing the subtlety of that slight pause between the shifting of the breath. So I wanted to bring your attention to that space because that is a point of liberation for us. That split second pause is freedom. And you don't have to extend it. You just have to know, you have to just be there when these breaths come together and just experiencing that, because all of this is conceptual anyway. None of this is actually happening. Right? So that little spark of liberation and that little space between the breaths actually becomes a spark that can light even more up in our experience. These pauses are always happening in between thoughts, in between emotions, in between. It's called a bardo. It's a bardo practice. Like it's always freedom in between things, in transitions. In transition, the form, the restrictions fall away, even for a second. And if you can just show up there in that moment, that falling away, then you can get free. So going even deeper, in that pause between the breaths, imagine that medicine Buddha arises in that space. Like inhaling, medicine Buddha arises, exhaling. And what is helpful for me, what has been helpful for me in the past is imagining that wherever I feel that exchange happening in my physical body, be it in my nasal cavity, in my chest, wherever I feel that exchange happening in my body, I imagine medicine Buddha arising in that space. You can imagine medicine Buddha as an image. You can, a feeling is fine. A belief or a trust that medicine Buddha is arising is fine. That's actually more truthful because medicine Buddha is always, as all awakened beings are always present. So this isn't a stretch. It's not one of these weird things Lama Rod is doing. By the way, I'm always doing weird things, so this is not extraordinary. It's Lama Rod and his evangelical dharma. And now, even in between the breaths. So if you're not working with the breath, just imagine medicine Buddha, begin to just feel medicine Buddha, you know, somewhere, you pick. In a way, it doesn't matter, but as you're breathing, you're just holding the energy, the image, the visualization of medicine Buddha constantly now. Because medicine Buddha is emerging from that space in between the breaths. And so no matter where medicine Buddha is appearing for you, imagining that medicine Buddha migrates down into the heart center. And the heart center is filled with this representation of medicine Buddha, or the feeling of medicine Buddha, or the energy of medicine Buddha, whatever feels appropriate for you. So slowly we begin to imagine that this medicine Buddha in our heart centers begins to radiate white light throughout your body. You begin to glow, radiate with this conscious energy of medicine Buddha. And slowly we begin to radiate outwardly. So our bodies begin to glow and radiate into the space around us. And so for those of you who weren't here when I talked about this, I'll just go over it again. So imagine that this glow around you, I would say it's your bioenergy field, for instance. Let's just say that. And from this field of energy, this glow, we can imagine all these tiny streams of energy expanding outwards from this field of energy radiating from our bodies. These streams of energy represents all of our energy being siphoned and spread into all kinds of situations. And I think most of which don't need to be receiving our energy right now. So once you kind of have a sense of that happening, and again, you can see it, you can visualize it, you can just feel it, or just say, this is happening, even though you can't see it or feel it. All of that is fine and appropriate. So once you have that, I invite you to shift your attention back into the heart center with Medicine Buddha. And I want you to offer a prayer to Medicine Buddha. And the prayer is, help me to reclaim my energy from going into situations and relationships where my energy does not belong. So you can rephrase that prayer in any way that feels fine, good for you. But essentially, we're asking Medicine Buddha to help us do the work of reclaiming our energy and going out into the world where it doesn't need to go. Not all of it, mind you, but reclaiming the streams of energy that are essentially being wasted. And asking Medicine Buddha to help us start reabsorbing that energy back into our experiences. And you don't have to think about where energy is going, you can. Absolutely. You can definitely reflect on situations where you're putting energy into and that you want to start divesting from. That's fine as well. But you can just pray to Medicine Buddha and let Medicine Buddha do this work for you. And then we're going to go into the mantra for the first mantra practice that's going to really start energizing this work. So just really just a couple more moments, visualizing these streams going out, praying to Medicine Buddha to help you reclaim energy that shouldn't be going out. So we're going to go into our mantra, our opening mantra. Om La Sangye Kino Soha Medicine Buddha. I pray that you know, look upon me now. We're going to chant this a few times. And this will really begin to awaken this practice before we get into our main mantra. Okay. So we'll begin. Om La Sangye Kino Soha. Om La Sangye Kino Soha. Om La Sangye Kino Soha. So we're going to shift into our main mantra now. And again, as we begin the main mantra, just allowing Medicine Buddha to start reclaiming these strands of energy and imagining that they just become redirect back into us. And just experiencing this feeling what that is like for us in our practice. Okay. O te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam begunze, begunze, ma begunze, rasa sumungate sua. Te atam sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Deada hum veganze, veganze, maha veganze, laza sumungate zoa. Om Beyenze, Beyenze, Ma Beyenze, Lazo Sumagate Zoa, Deata, Om Beyenze, Beyenze, Ma Beyenze, Lazo Sumagate Zoa, Deata, Om Beyenze, Beyenze, Ma Beyenze, Lazo Sumagate Zoa, Deata, Om Beyenze, Beyenze, Ma Beyenze, Lazo Sumagate Zoa, Deada, Beyenze, Beyenze, Maha 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 Beyenze, Lazo Sumagate Zoa. So I'm just turning my attention to the prayer requests. So as always, we invite all our sources of support, all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Dharma protectors, all beings of light, angels, our benevolent ancestors, all the energies of the land protectors as well, and any being really um, who has the capacity to hold these prayers and to work on our behalf to support those that we're offering prayers for. So we begin by offering prayers for my trauma recovery boundaries, and the clarity to understand how to move forward. May I let go of the drama. Offering prayers for my nephew recovering from an accident, and all beings for wellness, happiness, freedom, and ease in the new year. Offering prayers for Dot and Lauren as they deal with difficulties of aging. Offering prayers for Joel and Aaron and Judy as they deal with family challenges and communication. Offering prayers for January 2nd practice, my mom Elba, Rahina, my cat Galaxy, Colson, Greg, Snyder, and Becca S. Offering prayers for my dad, Tan, who is having surgery for cancer this month. May he live a long life, and may he have many more precious years together. Offering prayers for Chaya as she navigates sobriety and filling into her being, and prayers for Mariam, a young trans woman who longs for safety. May she be protected and loved fiercely. Offering prayers for Granny as she joins the ancestors. Offering prayers for protection for Chachu as she navigates a new relationship with their deceased sister's daughter. Prayers for Shirley and her mom. Her dad died a few weeks ago, and her aunt. And her mom's sister died last week, and just asking for prayers for their safe transition into and through the spirit world. Offering prayers to be met with appropriate difficulties so that my heart can truly open with compassion and find liberation. Offering prayers to be able to move beyond responding from my trauma so I can develop deeper care. Offering prayers for all people suffering from dementia and those who love and care for them, including my sister Anne and her husband Jerry. Offering prayers for my grandmother who is approaching her transition with a lot of fear, sadness, and regret. Offering prayers for my mom and my sisters as we attempt to intervene and help with my mom's precarious situation. Prayers that she sees the light and the path forward and does not fall back into isolation and squalor. Offering prayers for M, whose cancer has spread, for the family and the car accident I witnessed last night, for my dad who experiences his physical pain. Offering prayers for my little family that we grow the love and support and kindness in our family and all that we come in contact with. Offering prayers for clarity, focus, and strength for myself and my community. Offering prayers for me to heal from my head cold, prayers for B who has the flu and many illnesses and lives alone and lives alone. Offering prayers for Tetra, leading community ritual this week, and all those who will participate and be affected by the work together. Prayers for my applications and creativity and support to go back to school this year, that it brings blessings back to my home and community and career. Offering prayers for my father's health as he ages and navigates medical interventions and support. Offering prayer for my sister, whose water was shut off in her home recently. Offering prayers for all the teens who are together on the New Year's teen retreat as they re-enter their communities. May they be supported and remember they are deeply loved. Prayers for Grace and her family as they support her dad in transitioning from this life. May they all be supported. Offering prayers to strengthen my health, vision, and clarity for next steps. May I feel trust deeply in my bones that I'm always supported and loved. May I choose to stay again and again. Offering prayers for Rich, recently diagnosed with a brain tumor. Prayers for Alex and all the challenges she's experiencing at the moment. May we all cultivate spaciousness at this time. Offering prayers for my son as he navigates an end to an important relationship. Offering prayers for Emmett, who may be entering the bardo following a sudden stroke. Prayers for a dear friend, her family, and child as she leaves an abusive relationship. Offering prayers that I may open my heart to the possibility of romantic partnership. May I trust myself and the opening to love. Offering prayers for Mary, for courage and trust. Offering prayers for Natalia and her family who are home in Ukraine. May they be safe and well. Offering prayers for sister for her health and well-being. Offering prayers for my neighbor and his journey with cancer, and gratitude for support of us in our times of need. Prayers for my dear friend Chloe and her mother as they continue to navigate her mother's dementia. Prayers for me and my partner to continue to heal, grow, and strengthen in our relationship. Prayers for joy, protection, and nourishment in 2023 for Lama Rod and this Sangha. Offering prayers that make progress in disambiguating various health concerns and start feeling better in 2023. Prayers that the rift between me and my sister be healed with love. Prayers for my sister Carol, who is navigating addiction, mental illness, and displacement. She's being removed from her home as of January 13th. Prayers for my son, who is finding his way in love and in making life decisions. Prayers for Kerwin, Isa, Michelle, and Matsui. Prayers for step-brother Jason and his family during his time in prison. Offering prayers for Alex, who is suffering from COVID, and for his family as well. Offering prayers to be set free of the fear of breaking free from others' ideas about who I am. Prayer for all those students coming back after leaving school without the liberation they needed. Prayer for Jennifer D. Prayers for Batia Balfinzen, who entered the bardo this week, and for her family who is grieving, including Becca and their mother. Prayers for my daughter who is experiencing bullying and social exclusion at her school. Prayers for all my friends and loved ones struggling with loss and illness of various kinds. For my children and grandchildren as they find their way with anxiety and ADHD. Myself, Rachel, beginning a course of antibiotics for bronchitis. May my lungs heal quickly and with ease. Offering prayers to the Forrester family as the father transitions out of this world. Prayers to me and our family, Patrick, for reclaiming the energy we spend on subverting the societal expectations forced on us as an Asian American bodied people. Prayers as I give up the world's pain and focus on love and family. May we all experience the openness children share. Prayers for Jill and Benji's pet, Katsu, who's experiencing cancer. Prayers for healing and community while in a difficult accountability process. We're also offering prayers for Rose as she navigates end of life obstacles. Continue to offer prayers for all of those in our world who are struggling through famines, wars, the continuation of pandemics, totalitarian regimes, the governments, those of us navigating the loss of rights and social agency. We continue to pray for the abolition of all systems of violence, hierarchy, and power, that we may all experience complete liberation socially and eventually complete ultimate liberation back into the nature of all phenomena. And may all those present in this space, those who offer prayers, those whose prayers remain unarticulated, may we all experience the deepest well-being, happiness, and joy. May we have the resources that we need in order to be well, and also in order to offer support back to our communities and all those who rely on us for support. So as we transition back into just a short few minutes of our mantra practice, again, we're asking Medicine Buddha to move on our behalves, as well as all those beings we just actually invited into the space to hold the prayers. We are relying on them to work on our behalf. And as we continue the mantra, we're continuing to draw that energy back into our own experiences. Okay. So returning back to the mantra. Om Teata Begenze Begenze Mahabegenze Raza Sumo Ngate Soha. O Teada Begenze Begenze Mahabegenze Raza Sumo Ngate Soha. Teada Begenze Begenze Mahabegenze Raza Sumo Ngate Soha. Teada Begenze Begenze Mahabegenze Rasa Sumo Gate Soa. Deada Begenze Begenze Mahabegenze Rasa Sumo Gate Soa. Deada Begenze Begenze Mahabegenze Rasa Sumo Gate Soa. Deada Begenze Begenze Mahabegenze Raza Sumungate 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 Soa. Deada Begenze begenze, maha begenze, rasa sumugate soa, deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, rasa sumugate soa, deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, rasa sumugate soa. Deyata Om Begenze Begenze Maha Begenze Razu Sumugate Zoha Deyata Om Begenze Begenze Maha Begenze Razu Sumugate Zoha Deyata Om Begenze Begenze Maha Begenze Razu Sumugate Zoha Deyata Om Begenze begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, om begenze, begenze, maha begenze, razu sumugate soa. Deyada, 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 begenze, 베연제 마베연제 라자 수목 같아 소하 until just slowly imagining as you turn your attention back to your heart center. We begin to imagine that medicine Buddha just dissolves into white light, and this white light dissolves into our bodies, shifting our attention back down to the seat, noticing the weight of our bodies making contact with the seat, feeling that groundedness for a moment, and letting that anchor, that groundedness, invite us back into this moment. Just reawakening the body with maybe some simple, slow movements, maybe taking a few deep cleansing breaths, inhaling into the nose, out of the mouth, and just releasing anything that you're holding on to that you don't need to hold on to any longer. Releasing that out into the space around us. And as we release it into the space, we invite the mother to hold it for us. We'll shift our attention now to Shanti Deva's prayer. We'll recite this 3 times. May I be a protector to all those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, and a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. All right. Well, thank you so much for your practice. Does anyone have a really important question to ask before we close out? that you just can't survive without knowing the answer to. And you can raise your hand, you can put the hand up button. You can come on, someone can unmute you. Or you can put a question in the chat as well, so. All right, who's up?
Remy.
Hey. I can hear you.
Try it now, Remy.
Oh, that's not.
Hello. Hi. Hi. Thank you for the practice today. I've been having this thing happen whenever I do the medicine Buddha mantra where my throat like closes. And it's like I feel like different voices coming out of me.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's like really intense.
Hey.
And I've been having like a lot of dreams about it.
Ooh.
With you in them also.
Yay. Well, I invoice for dream appearances, so that's
Okay.
it's not volunteer work.
Yeah, so it's really, I don't know, it's like even hard to, I like can't believe I even raised my hand to bring it up because it's just been like this thing that's been happening, but today was like really intense. And when I do the practice on my own, it happens also. So I was just wondering if you had any insight or recommendations or any idea like what could be happening or like, yeah.
Well, it's throat chakra energy. It's a lot of energy. That's sometimes that happens when we start mantras or when we're practicing mantra intensely. All that energy rushes and awakens within the throat chakra here, right? Which is the fifth chakra coming from the heart center. Nothing is really wrong. Like the heart chakra, your throat chakra is just awakening in the mantra. And so it has there's a physicality to chakras awakening. We have more than 7 chakras. We have like, no one really knows, but like we can estimate up to 70,000 chakras, but like all this is arbitrary again, but what with the throat chakra, right? It's the physical conditioning, that accompanies the energetic body awakening and changing something. And so like, don't worry about it. If I'm in your dreams, I'm working on it. So that's usually the sign. If I'm showing up, then usually part of my consciousness is working that energy out for you. So that's what that means.
That is so nice.
Yeah. So, if it gets really intense, one thing that you can do is just imagine sending that energy down. So when it gets really, like this happens to me sometimes, and some chakra gets really intense and full, you just have to like breathe it down or up. But really, this case, you just want to breathe it down. You want to ground it down through the body into the earth and see how that works out for you as well.
Thank you.
This opening, relaxing, surrendering to it. Of course, if you can't breathe, that becomes a problem. So you just kind of have to stop it. But as long as you can breathe, just kind of ride it out. And see what happens.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else? Any other question?
There was one question that was added to the doc that I just sent you in a message. I don't know, Milena, if you want to say if it's super, super high priority or not. I leave that to you.
I haven't even checked the doc. Let me check that.
Only one.
Oh, it's okay.
And Emily has her hand up too.
Okay, so that question. Okay, regarding sending energy, I have been trying to send energy to my past self who was going through a really hard time this year, especially when I have a really good day. I feel like it works and I think it helped me get through. Any thoughts on this, do's and don'ts? Yeah, that's fine. What you're doing is fine. Like, um, what we're doing, well, in this case, when you're sending energy to something that happened in the past with us, we're just kind of releasing that trauma that keeps part of ourselves stuck in that experience. So the energy actually begins to like untangle all of that stuff that's gotten like cleaned up together. And once it gets nice and loose, you will experience a kind of, well, it's a feeling of being pushed forward, if that makes sense. Like you've been like you're tied to, in a way, part of you is tied to this past and you can't move as quickly as you would like. But once that energy starts getting untangled, then it's like you get pushed forward, right? And that's really the power of this kind of energetic practice, working with past, you know, trauma, hurt, whatever, have you. So yeah, just keep doing it. You're doing fine with that. There are parts of what you begin to understand is that like parts of our consciousness gets knotted. There are knots that appear in the consciousness, and the knots come from surviving or getting through some type of traumatic experience. And so if we don't clear that experience fully, and I don't believe that we have to fully clear or like dissolve these knots completely, but they have to be dissolved enough so that we don't keep getting pulled back to those knots when we're under stress, or when we're experiencing activation or triggering, you know. But it has to be down enough, right? That it's not, we don't get automatically pulled back there during stress, right? So this is why doing these kinds of practices are really important, sending energy back, because it's even more than you realize. Like, this is why we train in awareness, because in the moment, like as something is happening in the moment, we can actually work in the moment to make sure energy keeps moving instead of getting trapped, right? Of course, that trapped energy is what we would call trauma, right? And that reactivity, PTSD from that. Yeah. So the more we gather these tools that we've been working on, the more we're able to bring these tools to the moment when something happens. I like to handle things in the moment. Like as something happens, I like to stay right in the moment, processing and metabolizing energy as things are arising. Okay. Any other questions? One more.
Emily, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Lama Rod and everyone. Thank you so much. I hope that this will be pretty quick. I've just noticed that when doing medicine Buddha practice or meditating or in any situation where I feel particularly spiritually connected lately, I've been feeling really strong, almost like rotating, vibrating energy in my hands and my feet.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And also notice whenever I'm home that my very uncuddly cat comes and hangs out with me. And today for the entire medicine Buddha practice, she was lying on top of my chest purring, which I don't think ever in her life. So I'm just curious about your perspective on that, and if there's anything I can be doing to like harnessing this energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, so the energy, so what some of you are experiencing is some latent abilities arising. And so it sounds like for you, Emily, if you're feeling energy in the hands, that's really a sign of like energy healing. Are you a healer?
In a sense, yeah.
we're gonna say yes.
Okay.
So there's like, so you're activating certain channels in the body where you can actually over time learn how to consciously actually work with that energy, like laying on the hands.
Hmm.
So like you can do like this kind of like basic, like, I don't know, surveying energy, just feeling energy when you put your hands together. And so when you start feeling that again in practice, just like kind of bring your hands together and just feel what energy is arising there.
Okay.
And just see what happens from there.
Okay.
And for Remy, so you talked about voices, you're getting different, so you're channeling different beings through the throat chakra. So that's really, it's kind of like, what's inappropriate? Oh, this is a time where Matrix is not appropriate. It's like, surely I can find an example in Matrix. I can't. Maybe X-Men would be better. Like, it's just like this time where people's latent abilities are beginning to surface, especially if you're doing this practice with me. So there are things that are just going to start happening, and it's fine. It's not going to be dangerous, but just noticing what happens, right? Dreaming, visions, energy stuff, like it's the kinds of capacities that awaken are quite varied, right? So again, just pay attention, and you'll be fine. And any questions, just bring into the space and we'll work with it. Also, a quick reminder, we have Free Radicals coming up on Thursday. That's 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 6 o'clock for UK time, and wherever you are in between that. So that's on our website, and it'll be somewhere. Thank you all so much, and I will catch you hopefully on Thursday. If not, hopefully I'll see you back here next Monday as well.